See this little machine in here? It literally changed the way I sound design, and it's not because I helped building it. Hello Internet, and welcome to a new tutorial. So I've been deep into the Manatee project for over a year now. I've been working as a beta tester, creating factory presets for it, and just pushing it to its limit in all kind of crazy ways. And while doing so, I've learned sound design techniques and workflows that literally changed the way I sound design even inside of the DAW. So in this tutorial, I want to show you the Manatee by Fred's Lab and show you how it changed the way I sound design. Now, before we dive into this tutorial, if you like my content and want to support my work, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Things like that helps the channel a lot. And if you feel generous and want to buy me a coffee or maybe a beer, there's a super thanks button for that. Now that said, let's dive into this tutorial. So starting with a quick overview, the Manatee by Fred's Lab is a fully digital 16 voices, 4 parts multitimbral synthesizer. We have 2 oscillators. The star of the show is a spectral oscillator or an additive oscillator. We start with a basic shape, let's say a sine, a saw, square, or a pinch sine or a pinched triangle. And then we can add up to 8 harmonics or 8 partials on top of them, and we can modulate these partials. I'll show you how in a bit. The second oscillator is a straightforward VA, virtual analog. We have sine and triangle that we can FM, and saw, square that we can pulse width modulate. And to complete these oscillators, we have ring modulator and a noise generator. To filter everything, we have a multi-mode filter that sounds incredibly good, with classic shapes, low pass, high pass, 1224 dBs per octave, and a band pass, 12 dBs per octave. The resonance on them is crazy. And because it's 2025 and one filter is not enough, there is an RC filter that comes after the main filter. It's basically a 6 dB non-resonant filter. It's there to help us shape the sound and complete the work of the first filter. And because this machine was designed to create nasty, full of character sounds, we have an overdrive circuit with 3 algorithms for now. We have tube, fuzz, and bit crush. Now, no synthesizer is complete without some effects. For that, we have a delay. This delay can be classic delay, ping pong delay, or it can be a resonator or a comp filter. You know what that means for Psytrance? We can create those crazy time melting patches with it. I'll show you how in a bit. This delay feeds into an equalizer. It's a 2-band equalizer. It does what every equalizer does, meaning we have low pass, high pass, low shelf, high shelf. We have bells, notches, just a classic equalizer. And to finish it off, we have a reverb. But the reverb is for the 4 parts of the synthesizer, while the delay, the EQ, is per part. Now, modulation-wise, we have a couple of envelopes in here. These are meta-envelopes, meaning the decay is per envelope, but the attack, sustain, and release are shared between both envelopes. But that doesn't mean that both envelopes need to be an ADSR envelope, because each envelope can be anything from DR, ADR, DSR, ADSR, gate, basically on and off, or AR. So you're getting a lot of flexibility from these envelopes. And trust me, when I started working on this project, I was like, yeah, this is super limiting. Only the decay is per envelope. But when you start working with it, you realize that you don't necessarily need an ADSR for everything that you're doing. So even when it looks limited, it's actually super flexible. Now, these envelopes are pre-routed to the amp and the filter, but each one of them has an extra destination that we can choose freely with expression control. Of course, I won't forget the LFOs. We have 3 of them. LFO 1 and 2 are monophonic, and LFO 3 is polyphonic. LFO 3 is pre-routed to the filter, but each of the LFOs has its own destination with expression control. And if that's not enough, the synthesizer has 3 slots of modulation matrix with, of course, source, destination, and expression control. That was a quick overview. How about now we hear it in action? So we have an initial patch, just a basic saw wave. I want to hear the VA engine, so let's set it to VA engine, full volume on it. Right, let's take it 1 octave lower, or maybe 2. I have this. Set it to 24. Right, let's close the filter so we can hear it, give it some resonance. Fred's Lab wasn't joking when he designed this filter, right? I mean, check the low pass 24. Listen to this. Sounding amazing. You know what? Let's set this filter to bandpass, just like so. So we have this. Now, the filter by default has some modulation from the envelope filter. So I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to take off the tracking. So now we have this. Right? Let's make it click. I'm going to take it another octave lower. So we have this. Right? And now I'm going to engage the delay. And I'm going to set it to echo. Not even comp. Set it to something like this, maybe. Right, give it some feedback. All right, let's go back to the delay. Set it to a longer delay time. Yeah, something about 46. Actually, I'll set it to 40. And now what I'm going to do, I'll take the first LFO. Right, I'll keep it on a sine wave. Actually, you know what? I don't like sine waves. Let's set it to a triangle, like so. Set the phase to free, and I'm going to make it modulate the delay time, just like so, right? I'll set the frequency of the LFO to something slow, maybe 23. Now check this out. Of course, it's not going to do anything because the amount is set to 0. Let's make it modulate a tiny bit like so. Now, this is sounding super psychedelic, but the modulation is looping over and over again. You know, the LFO is set to triangle and it's just looping. But what makes these LFOs special and, to my taste, sets the Manatee apart is that these LFOs are somewhere in between an LFO, a sequencer, and an envelope. What this means is that we have actually 3 shapes for the LFO that we can set the LFO to sequence between them. See, we have shape A, we have shape B, and shape C. So if I set shape B, say to a saw wave, and shape C, let's go with a sample and glide. What will happen now is that the LFO will do a cycle of the triangle, then the saw wave, and then sample and glide, and then it's going to repeat the cycle. So it's basically now some sort of a sequencer. And if we don't want it to repeat over and over again, we can set this LFO to one-shot mode. And here, see, we have one shot. But I want it to repeat and be some sort of a sequencer. So now we have this. Check this out. Okay, let's set the rate of the LFO to something a bit faster so you just hear what's happening for the sake of the example. Let's set it to maybe 40. Check this out. And we've just created something super psychedelic. Let's go to the delay in here, set the feedback to something, maybe something like this, and set the level to maybe 100, just so the effect will be louder. And now we have this. See, we're getting a little bit of artifact because of the modulation. It's just sounding full of character. And if you want to give it a little bit of a bite, let's set the overdrive in here to tube. Just give it a tiny bit of drive, not a lot. The character of this synthesizer, just something else. All right, now I want to push things further with this patch, and I want to give it some phasing effect. But you're going to tell me there's no phaser with it. That's correct, but this EQ in here, I want to show you how we can use it as a phaser. But first, there's a lot of low end. I want to take the excess low end out. So for that, I'm going to use the RC filter in here. I'm going to set it to high pass, just like so. Set it to maybe about like 50, something like that. Now I have this. Perfect. We took some of the excess low end out. And now let's go to the EQ. We have EQ1. I'm going to set it to a notch like so. And I'm going to, let's set the control somewhere in here, give it a lot of amp. Now I have this. we've created some sort of a weird kind of phaser effect. Let's go to the modulation matrix, right? I'm going to use the second LFO, right? I'm going to set it to modulate the EQ1 control, just like so. And I'm going to set the amount maybe 50%. So now I have this. Right, let's go to the LFO here, set it to a faster rate, maybe like 50, set the phase to 3, and I'm going to keep it on a sine. This is a sine or triangle? This is, yeah, it's a triangle. So, you know, the shape is sometimes a bit confusing. You're not sure, oh yeah, this is a sine, this is a triangle. So now we have this. Here, this phasey effect we got. And let's go to the EQ in here. Let's engage the second equalizer. Of course, we're going to set it to notch. Set the amp to maximum. Set it maybe to 128. Let's go to the second slot of the modulation matrix. Of course, LFO2, I'm going to use it to modulate the EQ, just like with the first EQ band, basically. Let's set it to EQ2 control and set the amount maybe to minus 60. Let's hear what we have. Hear this phasey effect. How juicy the patch became. This is, wow, I love these kind of patches with the Manatee. They're full of flavor, you know, and you can replicate these kind of techniques inside of the DAW, so there's no excuses in here. Now, I want to show you how the Spectral engine sounds. So let's move to the next example and hear the Spectral engine in action. For the second example, I'm going to start with a sine wave from the Spectral oscillator. Sounds like this. Right, let's give it full volume, like so. Right, I want to give it a little bit of a body. And for that, I'm going to access the harmonic editor by hitting Alt-Gen, just like so. And I'm going to add manually a second harmonic, just like so, and a third one, just a little bit. Of course, there are presets for these harmonics, so you don't have to do them manually, but I prefer going manually, just like so. Right? Now, let's go back to our preset, take the oscillator a couple of octaves lower, right? So now we have this. It's full of character. This is something about the synthesizer. So what I'll do in here, I'll take the filter envelope and I'm going to modulate the formant parameter of the Spectral engine. The formant parameter sounds like this. Check this out. Right? So let's go to the modulation matrix in here. Let's take the filter envelope, just like so. Let's make it modulate the generator formant, just like so. Give it some amount like this, and I'm going to set the envelope in here to ADR. So now I have this. Right, let's go back to the modulation matrix, give it more amount. Let's set the decay to something faster. Right, we're making it talk already. Right, but I want to control the high end of this patch, right? So what I'm going to do, I'll use the low pass 12 filter in here. I'll close it, give it some resonance, and I'll open it with the filter envelope, just like so. And I'll take off the filter tracking for now. So we've just created kind of like a plucky patch, and to make it like extra plucky, I'll take the amp envelope in here, I'll set it to DR, and I'll set the decay somewhere out in here, so we're sure it's a plucky patch. Can take it one octave lower. Wow, the character of the synthesizer. Now, I want this patch to be a little bit wider in space, right? And to do so, I'm going to set it to unison mode, right? So for that, I'm going to set it to mono. Now it's unison mode. Let's give it some detuning, some width like so. Wow. Sounding super wide. Now I want to make it a bit psychedelic, and for that I'm going to take the first LFO, which is routed by default to the formant parameter of the Spectral engine. All right, I'm going to set it to a triangle, wave in here, and just like with the first patch, I wanted to sequence, create like some sort of a sequence. So for shape B, I'm going to set it to both widths, just like so. And I set the phase to free. Let's set the rate maybe to, yeah, let's say 80, something like that. And modulate it about, yeah, say amount, maybe 85, 84, I don't know. Let's hear how it sounds. So we give it a really nice movement. Let's go an octave lower. Wow. Maybe a bit more modulation in the modulation matrix to the formant parameter. A bit more. That's really nice. Now, let's take the delay in here, set it to a comp, just like so. Set it to maybe a time of, I don't know, 40, give it some feedback. Now I have this. Right, and in the modulation matrix, I'm going to use the first LFO to modulate the delay time of the comp filter. So I'm going to set it to delay time, just like so, give it some modulation. Now I have this. It's just creating something glitchy. Let's take it one octave lower. Wow. Let's open the filter a bit more with a bit more resonance. Wow. If this is too crazy for you, we can go back to the modulation matrix and set the modulation from LFO 2 if you would like, and go to LFO 2, give it a bit more rate on the modulation, and set the phase to free. So now we make it more melt in time, right? And let's just give it some space with a little bit of a reverb. Oh, set it to comp like so. Let's go to the mixer, give it more reverb. Let's go to the reverb settings in here, give it a bit more feedback and a bit more diffusing. And we've just created something mega psychedelic. And now just imagine adding more effects like, I don't know, infiltrator or a granular kind of effect inside of the DAW to this patch. You just unlock a whole new kind of psychedelic sounds. Now up to the big question, how did a somehow limited synthesizer like the Manatee influence the way I sound design? Well, it all comes to a little feature I've always underestimated and ignored, and that is multitimbrality. See, the idea in here is that even when you have somehow limited patches but full of character, you've just heard them, you can still layer 4 on top of each other to create one big patch. So technically what you're doing in here is that you have 4 synthesizers working on top of each other, right? So you're multiplying the number of oscillators, of LFOs, of filters, everything. So you have in total 8 oscillators without counting the polyphonic patches. You have 4 filters, 4 delays, 12 LFOs. You're technically creating a behemoth of a synthesizer while using the multitimbrality. Now, check this patch out. Here I have a multi-patch. The first patch running in it is called Monster ADM. It's actually from my Xenoform preset bank for the Manatee. You can find it on Fred's Lab's website. It sounds like this. Right? I've layered it with Black Hole patch. Sounds like this. Full of character again. And the third patch is the Squelch. Sounds like this. And the 3 on top of each others, they will create this. Sounding super fat and juicy, but layering 3 patches on top of each other that will play all at the same time with one single note or more if it's polyphonic is a little bit boring. How about we push things further? I want to have some fun with the synthesizer. I want to create some controlled chaos, you know, make some proper psychedelic patches and sounds with it. So for that, I have this next example. So what I did in here, I've layered 3 random leads on top of each other. These random leads we heavily use in Psytrance. Basically, they're full of random modulators, randomly modulating any parameters we can think of. And I'm going to share the 128 velocity values between those patches. And then I'm going to use a random arpeggiator like Rhythmizer from Featurephonic to randomly switch between those patches using random velocity values. So basically, we're going to create something full of chaos and glitchiness, but everything is controlled. I mean, check this out. First of all, let's go to the MIDI parameters in here. This is for the first patch. I'm going to set the velocity low to 0, velocity high, let's set it to 42. Second patch, velocity low 42, and like so, velocity high 82. Just like so, no, 84. And the third patch, velocity high 128, and velocity low is going to be 84, just like so. Actually, no, 85. And for the second patch, the velocity low will be 43, else they will play at the same time. So now if I'm going to play my random arpeggiator, check what we will get. Just to give you an idea, let's turn off all of the patches in here. Let's keep only patch number 1. Sounds like this. Right? Second patch sounds like this. And the third patch sounds like this. Right? And all of them, let's give them some delay and some kick and bass, and we will get this. And that, in a nutshell, was the Manatee by Fred's Lab and how it's influencing my sound design and my sequencing. Now, the synthesizer is still under development, meaning this is not the final version of its firmware. Actually, Fred is putting a lot of hard work into adding new amazing features to the synthesizer just to make it even more awesome than it is. So if you want to grab a unit for yourself and help me by getting one, there's an affiliate link down in the description. Of course, there's no extra cost if you use my affiliate link. And yeah, with this is the end of this tutorial. I really hope you've liked it. I really hope you've learned something new. I'll see you in the next one.